Poetry is a very important part of my consciousness. Everything I do is about poetry. Every sound I make, every experience I have, I experience it as a creative thinker and as a creative writer and as a poet. My name is Eugene Skeef'S, and I'm a South African poet and musician, an artist living in London for the past 38 years. But I come from South Africa, and I'm very proud to have this motherland as my source.
So each time I would say, igama lami lasekhaya uRonsile, Ronnie's son, indodana kaRon, so Ronson, Ron. So I say, hey Ronsile, ogogo will call me Ronsile, the thing on the R and the L. Yes. And my dad would say, what are you doing? Reading the paper, sitting on the left of a car. And I'm sitting on a Caltex or BP gallon before the decimalization, the imperial measures of the oppressors.
This is how you count
yeah,
nature.
Exactly. So I'm sitting on that with a pillow on top of it. So I'll put my foot and control the accelerator, brake and clutch, unless the car was automatic, but mostly the gear shift. And then I'm looking through the wheel, the huge American wheel, looking through like as if it's a half a moon. So I'm not looking on top of it, And I'll drive. And my dad will say, what are you doing going in the porthole? Hey, can't you see? And I learned to drive like a dancer. So later, as a teenager, I used to drive, like in the movies where you do the two-wheelers and stuff. And I was Snoop Dogg, and the bouncing. We didn't have the bouncy thing, but I would drive like that. So by the time I came to drive for Ubiko, the Black Consciousness Movement,
I was very honored to be invited to come and do a masterclass with poetry students at the University of Johannesburg as part of the Izimbongi Poetry Festival. I was very inspired by these young people because they display an alertness and an openness to the power of poetry. They're great poets themselves.
Basically, I've lived an illustrious life, a very exciting and very full life. I've lived at the exquisitely vibrating end of life, I chose from a very early age not to live in the mediocre side of things, I live in the slow vibration as well because I meditate and I've done yoga for decades, and I can come down and be very slow, like that kind of thing. Yeah. But mostly my creativity, once I've done that and I've realigned myself, I live at the fastest end where my senses are alive, what I'm saying? And by senses, I mean all the senses, my sense of taste, my sense of hearing, my sense of feel, of touch, smell. I've lived in that space of just being fully aware. And for me, that's the definition of a poet, So I grew up in a township called Claremont, in a part of it called Lungelo Mntambo, It was very violent, and I was telling these dudes that my dad was the toughest man in the neighborhood, and he protected his family, and the fact of his being tough and my mother being a health visitor and a midwife and a healer of using divination, the African healing with the herbs and talking to the ancestors. She was all those things. She was a perfect balance between the Western way of looking at things and the African. And so my home was a destination for the entire township. Anybody who was vulnerable or who felt abused, who was abused, coming from abusive families would end up in my home. And there was food 24/7 and drink 24/7 for anybody at no charge, just to be there in a safe zone. But now using the space both metaphorically but also physically, literally, that it was a safe environment, a refuge, that people would come to and feel that no one would hurt them. So much so that even dogs and cats used to end up at our home. Well, sometimes humans can be very aggressive towards creatures like dogs and cats and hit them. So my home was a place where cats and dogs knew that they were safe from the aggressive humans or from buses that ran over them. And my mom would end up sometimes using galls and certain African medicines to return the innards, the intestines of a dog or a cat that had been run over back into them, and we would learn to be soothing and loving like that. So that is that's the sort of environment that I grew up in. and my confidence and sense of security was formed then. And I started writing poetry at a very, very early age. So I used to write poetry when I was at primary school because I was good, you know, I started with the usual sort of rhyming couplets and that kind of thing, you know. But I went away from that and just used nature and our own culture, Zulu songs, Mbondo songs, Xhosa songs, you know, in the weekend, people chanting under the fig tree. All those things inspired me to love words. The other reason I loved words is because from a very young age, you know, like you just said, my brother, you know, your surname is Ngidi. And for the first time you discovered, just tell that story very briefly.
Yeah, I discovered that it's actually an onomatopoeia, meaning a sound for dance or music or heartbeat or drum beat. Yeah, Ngidi. Yeah. So when I followed through, like even Itagazel or the what do they call them in English?
They're praise names there's another word, a better word for that, but yeah, but the praise names of the family or the clan. Yeah.
Sure. So there, when I actually read through it, thorough, I realized that it actually like affirms the recent discovery about how it's a sound, not like a look. Yeah.
What I extracted from that is that actually people used to use dance and sound to merge the physical and the spiritual world.
Hence the lock. Hence we call the lock Ngidi, because of how it locks into things, you know, a gate, like a gate, the mover and the pole, yeah. So I think it's that. Yeah.
So here's a little game, right? Here comes before the beat.
Every day of my life, there's not one day, literally, that passes without me being reminded of a flavor, a taste, a smell, a sound of my whole experience of being in South Africa before I was forced into exile, primarily because of my work with Steve Biko and the Black Consciousness movement.
Our love is unstoppable.
Our movements are spiritual. Our movements.
Actually contains all the elements of what I want to share with you in terms of what poetry really is. I'll read you something in a moment, but I was saying that it's in Europe, it's European, sort of the European imposed culture that introduces us to the concept of compartmentalization. You have a chest of drawers. This is for your underwear, that's for your pajamas, you know, this is for that. You know, oh, is this dance? Oh, I see, this is poetry. Ah, this is song. Oh, I see, this is plastic arts, visual arts. You understand? Oh, it's not poetry, it's prose, you know? Whereas in Africa, traditionally, in pre-colonial times, and it exists now in some liberated countries, and by which I don't just say a country that's free, you know, we've got democracy, I mean a country that's liberated even mentally and spiritually, you know, that knows itself, you know? Like the people from Mali in West Africa, or the people from Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. I have friends in London from all these countries, and I've been to some of the countries. The Ghanaian people, you know, some Nigerians of the Yoruba people, or the Igbo, or the Hausa in the north, you know, or Fulani, they know themselves. Everything that the person is wearing, or every mark, like we know ourselves as well, here down south. But all I'm saying is the damage has been done more here where we are than in other parts of Africa, you know, where all the art forms belong together, you know, they're like a dreadlock, you know. Once a dreadlock, this is a dreadlock. If you take it apart, it ceases to be a dreadlock, you know, it's strands of different hair threads. And that's not a dreadlock. So we're talking dreadlock, you understand what I'm saying?
When did you realize that nature is the source? Was it during childhood?
During childhood.
You couldn't explain it when you were a kid, but you now have words.
My first experience of symphonic poetry was we're poor, and we lived in Ndunduma in a house that had a corrugated iron roof with no ceiling, and the roof would rust, and there'd be holes where the screws were that pinned the roof to the wooden panels, you know, to keep it from flying away. And those holes would become big, and then when it rained the kind of rain where frogs come out of the sky, you know. There's a scientific explanation for that, but I don't need it. I just love the drama of frogs coming out of the sky. You know? And when frogs came out of the sky, termites came out from nowhere. And they were high in protein, and I didn't need the scientists, the European scientists, to tell me that. We just took them and ate them or fried them, you know, and we loved them. And we'd run naked in the rain. And soon enough, our bodies would be giving off steam because the Durban sun is hot, you know. Yeah? Okay. So the other symphonic sounds then is when the rain came through, my job as the eldest son of our family was to wake up the other kids, and we'd run and collect different containers plastic containers, the steel buckets, or tins, empty tins of powdered milk that Nestle forced our mothers to use, except my mom didn't, and she breastfed us because she was a wise woman, you know? And I'd collect those and put them directly under the leaks, you know? And different size holes leak water at different rhythms. So I studied polyrhythms as a child, you know? And different pitches, you know, different melodic pitches. So there'd be a C sharp here, a B flat there, you know, an E there, a D, because as the water fills, the resonance of the tin, the container, you know, amplifies the fundamental note of the amount of water that there is. So I'm shy, you know what I'm saying? And we would put all the tins in different places, and I would just go wild, and I would rap, basically improvise poetry to all that music, you know what I'm saying? And then go to sleep with it, and cup my ears, and you know when you go like this, and I do that, and I have the most peaceful sleep. So all the violence of the ghetto, all the political apartheid violence would just melt away. And I'd be ready to start another day the next day. You understand what I'm saying? My first experience of symphonic music and multifaceted poetry was the environment, you know? So that the safest place for me beyond my home was the natural environment. You know, I swam in rivers naked with other kids. We did, you know, flips, you know, backflips and Schaumlumport, or, you know, somersaults, you know, and going into the river where you could see the fish right at the bottom. So clean was the water. Which water, when I came back, was polluted and damaged by Western chemical firms, so much that my river disappeared. But a river never dies. So I looked for the river and found that it had gone underground, you know. I didn't need to go abroad to be taught about how we must regard rivers as sacred. Our people knew that before anybody else on the planet. We are the masters and mistresses, or maestros and maestras, you know, of that knowledge. We hold it in our hands, in our hearts, in our souls, more than anybody else on the planet. And do not ever forget that. Don't be confused by these cheap ads of the kind of TV that the majority of people watch in South Africa. Pure stuff that I won't describe because I don't want to be offensive again. Don't be fooled by that. We have the answers right here, in your beautiful lips, in your glistening eyes, in the inhalation of the Spirit through your nostrils and every pore of your body and skin, through the follicles of your hair, uncontaminated. We have that energy. You know what I'm saying? Don't be fooled. That is my memory. So when I came back to South Africa, the first time when I saw all these things, I began to write a symphonic poem. It's called In Search of My River. A symphonic poem of memory. And you know the great African writer, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, you know that name? Mm-hmm. He's my personal friend of many years. I used to make music for his drama, The Trial of Dedan Kimathi. The Trial of Dedan Kimathi, a play that he co-wrote with Michelle Mugo, about Dedan Kimathi, who was a dreadlocks man, who was a warrior, a Mau Mau guy, who was the Steve Biko of Kenya. Yeah. And both of them, the writers were brutalized a lot. I don't know how much you know about Ngugi, but he was beaten and tortured and imprisoned. He has agreed to write the foreword to my symphonic poem, which is an epic poem, so I'm very proud. I will just read you just a little bit to share with you. It's in many movements. Incantation. I returned home after an absence that outlived the epic of my dreams. I searched for the river of my innocence, but it was not where I had left it. Perhaps it had become sad that I had left without saying goodbye. But there was no way I could have had a farewell dip in its calming flow. I could not have succumbed to the coolness of its caress before vanishing with the elusive speed of the winter sun into the long night to join the dispersed shadows concealing the love of those who dared to question the mountain for engulfing the sun. I wondered as I sat on the slopes of my youth, holding my breath against the stench that suffocated the flight paths of disappeared skylarks. Where could my river have gone, and what large wound festers beneath the scab of alien colors, heaped like a foreign hill of some fraudulent geology, where I used to swim with fish of delicious color and uncontaminated charm. I felt my breath disappear with the boyish joy of my memory of following the fish to the very bottom of my secret world. Could it be that the river of my dreams got lost trying to follow me when I left without saying goodbye? Or could it have gone underground and returned to its source? I sat in silence and tried to recall the path to the wellspring, now obstructed by an artificial landscape of putrescent peaks. I closed my eyes, moist with the mist of time, and tried to imagine the feathered dance that heralded the rain, the perfumed premonition that invaded the nostrils of my fled desire. I saw the flying termites emerge, each from its sacred locus in the harmony of the spheres, and surrender their nourishment like the darkening clouds of freedom. I saw naked children running with open mouths, their bodies glistening with the condensation of hallowed seasons. I heard melodies of sparkling notes hidden from the tunings of this world, plucked from their innocence as the rain filled the earthen vessels of their laughter. I remembered my mother fetching consecrated water from the river of sages, and on the way back along the verdant slopes, she picked impeko for the infusion of my clouded vision, the rhythm of her incantations lulling me to sleep. Unable to hold my breath any longer, I heard the howl of the somnambulant, maggot-infested dog my brother and I failed to drown in the sacred river before its winged smell rose from the shimmering depths to envelop me in the fermentation of a dream. In the dream, I am a child in the hinterlands of my grandmother's love. She tells me a story about Nomvula, the young maiden gifted with the power to call the rain with the sacred drum, her voice of honey and her dance of Ingonjani. Nomvula, goddess of rain, whose every pulse, like the heavenly stars, is studied by the soothsayers to inform the weave of the gossamer of their ancient wisdom. I woke up before sunrise at the eastern estuary of my forlorn river, my body trembling like the reeds in the breeze of dawn, cradled in the lagoon of love's first light. The first rustle of the bulrushes in the purification of my thirst, heard in a cast of crabs, who emerged with the slow rhythm of the rising sun. A lead crab bore a drum between her pincers and played polyrhythmic trills whilst dancing on the vellum of the bleeding heavens as the river disgorged the hurt of memory. The crabs of divination crawled out of the sea in their multitude, their shells as smooth as pebbles, burnished of all impurities. As the foam receded, it left an imprint of my igneous longing on the beach. So that's my response to finding the river of my childhood polluted, because nature is what I'm really coming to share with you, is the repository of all poetry. Nature has the best poetry long before humans came into existence, and it will still have long after we've gone. So for me, nature is like a sacred, is a sacred space that I go to be regenerated, to be refueled for my inspiration, you know?
You started with the comment about, the fact that it's a Western idea and that we compartmentalize things, that there's this and there's this and there's this, and that there is no mixing it. And then you demonstrated that, I think, with telling the story in poem, with speaking in poem, with, sort of hearing a person's name, and from that extract poetry and extract meaning. And so the idea of there is poetry in everything, that's like one of the things I struggle with. And that made me struggle to call myself a poet as well. It's because it seems to me poetry would be like part of my life, and they're like other things, and so how do you like break that line so that everything is seen in poetry? And so when I'm sitting in my room studying accounting, I can also recognize poetry and other things and not wait for that time where I'm writing.
Poetry and the other art forms should not be compartmentalized. We keep coming back to that word because they're all part of one thing, the same thing, you know. And I talked about the djembe, the drummer actually wearing it, so that's dance, you know. And the drummer narrating stories, that's poetry, that's storytelling. And the drum itself having carvings, that's sculpture, that's art. And the carvings are the so the drum itself is a walking reference library, because you just have to look at the drum even before it plays, and you know the iconic symbology, you know, of the sculpture of the drum. You understand the embossed, you know, or scarred, you know, art of the drum. You know, the authentic one, not the tourist airport art one, which comes after that, because poor people are poor and they're wanting a fast buck, and tourists come from the States or France or Germany or Sweden or wherever, Japan, and they want to see dancers, and they do the lowest common denominator of the dance form, and the drums are crappy, they're made of the cheapest light wood, it has to be heavy wood, hard wood, you know. And South Africa has its version of that from Ipitombi, you know, which used to be called Ipitombi, you know. It's the same thing, you know. The people just want to see the girls waving the bum, so that the girl maybe can't even dance, but she can just shake the bum, and that's enough, you know, and that's it. But the dance, that's beautiful though, and the dances and the culture were deeper than that, you know. So we're about making sure that it's always deep. I used to play for all my children water drums and udu. The udu is a ceramic drum, a clay pot with a hole here, like a water jar, but with an extra hole on the side. And it's got the most beautiful sound. And I went to Nigeria. I took a South African potter, Clive Sitton, who was a phenomenal potter, to Nigeria on a cultural exchange that I started, where with them, only women only women use clay, because it's thought that men will become impotent. But there's a Nigerian man who was traveling with this old guy, and he just went to fiddle with the pot, and the next day he says he can still do it. You know, he told me he hasn't been impotent just to try and mess with them. You know. But they're beautiful people, and I played that to my kids whilst they were in the fetus. And water is a more efficient conveyor of sound. You know, sound is vibration in terms of physics, yeah? You know that. So you go, and the ripples go 360 degrees, you know, in every direction equally. And then, of course, it fades for human ears because we can't hear as much as dogs can hear, say, you know. Anyway, so in the mother's womb, the fetus, you know what protects the baby in the mother's womb? What protects the baby? What's the main? What is the baby in? In the amniotic fluids, you know, it's in water. You can call it whatever. That's the clever term for it. Yeah. And the amniotic fluids, the water in the womb, conveys the vibrations of the sound. You know. So from source, if it's Udu or if it's me singing at the piano beautifully for my wife, you know, or I massage her, or sometimes I sing, I do the vibrations, you know, I play trills, you know, on the womb itself, or in the water, in the bath. So it's double water, the water of the bath, I'm playing water drums, and then the water in the womb, you know. So the fetus gets that sound. And I started affecting my kids very, very early on. I would chant poetry as well. Now check this out. Africa invented the notion whereby you don't make certain sounds in the presence of a pregnant woman. Why, for instance? Just tell me why.
It triggers the baby.
So, like, you won't be playing loud djembe, you know, at the cutting edge, you know, the slap. You won't shoot an AK-47 unless then you're a crazy person, you know. But if you're a loving person and you're about looking after the community and enhancing the sense of feeling good together and becoming more beautiful together, you just play the most beautiful sounds in the presence of a pregnant woman. So that's my vibe, you know, that's where I come from. You understand what I'm saying? Poetry is the tongue of the gods, right? Poetry is the tongue of the gods. You think what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Poetry is the tongue of the gods. And I use gods in this in the English lowercase g and plural, because I'm not talking in the dogmatic sort of major religions form of the word. I'm talking about ancestral spirits, about things that are intangible, that you can't touch, that you can't see, you know, but they're there and they're beyond us.
When you say poetry is the tongue of the gods, I firstly have to say I agree, sir. It's when I started reciting, or when I do it, I can't not but close my eyes because I feel that's where everything comes from. So I try to go as deep as I can to speak the message of whatever it is that I'm trying to say. So, sir, I guess with my poetry, my question would be, how do you evolve your poems, technique-wise at least, into making, giving, not just relying on a certain part of your skill, like rhyme schemes or metaphors, but just to put everything into one way. Your poems have everything within them.
When you connect with yourself, which is connecting with the environment and connecting with your spirit, you know what to do, the thing that you've been placed here on the earth to do. When you don't do that, then you're responsible for it. Because if you blame anybody else, you're blaming yourself because you're one with everything. So you don't blame parents, you don't blame government. Really, that's another story. But you just look at yourself and you do the thing. You understand me? Because you have people who like to whinge. You know the English term of whinge? Like you like whinging about things. Stop whinging, man, and just chill and be yourself, and you can do the things. And nature abounds in that. Nature gives me all those metaphors. I'm telling you. I could talk about a piston, a car's piston, the piston in a car engine. I could end up there, but I would come via nature, because there are pistons in nature. That's a copy. Anything in this Amshini Panoi, imitates a bird. So I can talk about thermals. I can talk about an aeroplane by writing poetry about thermals and how a bird goes on migration from here, 6,000 miles away, and come back, and it knows exactly what to do. When an airplane reaches cruising speed, they only 30,000 feet, and they cruise. You know that. You turn the engines off in a way, and they cruise. Because they're using bird technology. So nature has the answer for everything. You know what I'm saying? Even how a gun works, how guerrillas function, everything. So I hope I'm getting close to answering your question. So it's about confidence. The one thing, the reason I told you about Begi also, the second reason is that Begi practiced, he used to play 3 days non-stop. 72 hours non-stop. Because you're playing an 88 key instrument, a normal Steinway grand piano has 88 keys, So to master them and know them, you've got to visit them. So if you want to understand the rainforest, say, and you want to be the master, you've got to exhaust yourself going through the entire rainforest. Because one frog from there is slightly different to a frog from there, even though they're both frogs from the rainforest. So understand them, if you get where I'm going. Understand everything about the thing that you want to be good at. That's what I did as a child, literally as a child. I just studied everything, and no one whipping me. I studied with love because I was open. I had keen ears like an elephant. I listened with my every pore of my body, with every part of myself. You understand me? That's why I'm the child who will be going in the bush and look. I can hear the sounds that other kids can't hear, because I can hear, even in a workshop, in a cluster chord. I can hear the note that is the magical note in a full chord, 10 fingers. I can hear the one that sings, that makes my heart vibrate, that makes my whole body shake. You know what I mean? And that's the one I'll dance to, because I know it gives me something that I can take and bring to you, and you can take to someone else, We are that transitional space. That is poetry. So poets couch things in terms that are actually impossible, if you follow my meaning. Like, we're not supposed to know, and we won't know, But we are living, and we are the embodiment of what came before and what is yet to come. And if we are the embodiment of that, our every pore, our every hair strand, our every breath, our every inhalation, every exhalation is a manifestation of that which we don't know, which we can't touch. Anything short of that is a waste of time and energy. Does that answer you, man? Yes. So who are we? We are the ones who dare to say the unsayable. You dig what I'm saying? Yeah. Anything short of that is not poetry, it's mediocrity. We are the real people. But we are so proud that we don't have to be arrogant, because we are so self-assured that what we do is the thing that people are waiting to hear. So we do it for them and for us and for all of us together. For in doing it, we become better people. And we become one with the rose, one with the baobab, one with Intlaba, one with the rivers that are flowing, one with Nekabate, you know, one with Intaba. You know what I'm saying? You know, yeah? One with Intaj, one with everything. Because we are the ones who are blessed with the ability to participate in the transformative power of expression. You dig what I'm saying? So that is what a poet is. So poetry is the tongue of the gods. So here, just something I wrote this morning, knowing I was coming to you guys. A true poet acts as the nexus of a nation, the pulse of a people, the cultural consciousness of a country, and the spirit of a society. A poet's main function in society is to inspire the people through his or her gift of interpreting those aspects of being that are normally invisible to the rest of the community or society. In this way, poetry is the tongue of the gods. So nature gave me those poems and the symphonic songs, you know, of jazz and music and everything. Both the rain coming through, you know, the rain that we used to capture, collect in the buckets, in the tins, but also the natural environment, you know, with birds and monkeys and everything. And then we would imitate sounds, you know, like all that stuff and you know stuff. I've got a recording that has all natural sounds that I made. That's got a lovely groove, and everything is just my body, you know. You know, that kind of thing, you know. So I use things like that, and then that would evolve and modulate. Lovely smile, and transform. That would modulate and become words. Yeah, you hearing me, my lovely darling sister? Yeah. That you become words, yeah? No, I'm not interrupting you, it's because I like you. I'm just liking the looks, and I just wanted to connect with you at that point, you know? Because it's magical, because also these are invisible webs, you know? When I go goosh, you know, like that. So there's the visual one, that's cheap, because we happen to be able to see. If you're blind, Stevie Wonder, you know, is blind. But wow, you know, that heightens these other senses and writes the most incredible music. But when we can see, when we can look, just like the powerful look you're giving me, when we can look, that becomes a highway or a byway of spiritual energy, literally. You know, you can analyze it scientifically also, almost. So that's what I just touched you, just like, coop, we've got that one. Sort see it, sign that thing, put it in the drawer, top drawer, come back to it later, you know. So those things then, the natural sounds transformed and modulated, you know, they changed key. You know, they went to a higher key, you know, like you play a key and you go jump. The thing modulated and they became words. Now words, this is the last thing I want to leave you with, and then I shut up, yeah? This is the last thing. Words, in our culture, in Zulu culture, but in all cultures, African, and even in the Bible, and even in ancient Mesopotamian culture, in ancient Indian culture, Syrian culture, Iran, you know, what was it called before? Oh, Persia, ancient European culture. First there was the sound, and then the word. Another expression, you know the Shambe people, the Shambe church? They're very deep. You know the Shambes, their understanding of the Zulu meaning of melody is Landela indlela yegama. Landela indlela yegama. Follow the path of the word, which is the sound. You know what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? That is melody. That's our understanding of melody. You understand what I'm saying? So first there was the sound and then the word. So that's even why we say Ngidi, we say Bombi. I mean, the old family, I don't know if you guys still say it, but way back we say Bombi. If you tune into the sound of the thing, or the being, you get very close to understanding the essence or the spirit of that thing. In fact, you become that thing. You become one with it, you become it, yeah? That's why the Khoisan people, you know, Abatwa, they're the most in tune people on the planet, like the Aboriginal. Our people are deep. For instance, when they want to get honey from the killer bees that will sting you and kill you know, they vibrate, they chant, they hum the same note of the fundamental note of the bees. So we know what the, and they will all just go. After a while, the bees relax and they are mesmerized by them because that is they. The bee hunter is becoming them. And then she or he just puts the arm through, not one bee will sting him, and take the honey. And have the honey. So when he's got the honey or she's got the honey, he or she will leave a certain amount of honey, never to take all the honey. To show that there's a reliance on them and there's a partnership. And when they leave, the bees will come back to their senses and just go carry on their life, you know. So that is a way of tuning sound. Is the most powerful thing. The universe has sound. That's the most primary force of vibration. The universe vibrates.
Wow. Wow, guys, Mr. Eugene Skeef'S. This was one of the best and most informative and also relaxed workshops we've ever had. Thank you so much, Eugene. Really, it was one of those ones that we needed. I think we've been so intense in terms of what we're trying to achieve with the poetry. Sometimes we forget to just take a breather and listen to the wind and be in tune with the water and, you know, be ourselves as opposed to chasing the idea of I'm a poet, as opposed to letting the poetry find you.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful.
Well, that's what we found
here. But you have an art for just encapsulating and summarizing it.
Thank you. But yeah, thank you for that. I think that's what we experienced here. And I'm really grateful that we're at this moment also with you, and it's a privilege.
Thank you.
We just had a workshop with the marvelous Eugene Skeef'S. I think for me, one of the reasons why I was so excited when Mr. Eugene's name came up was because I've been following his work for a very long time. Very excited to meet him for the first time, but even more so blown away by being in his presence and experiencing the person that he is, the stories that he tells, and the way that he even approaches the art that he does. So for me, it's more of a almost a confirmation of the expectation I had of him. You know, it's actually been surpassed. We really had a good workshop. I think the students also will walk away from this with their eyes a little more open as well in terms of what they can do with the art that they're creating, and also that realizing that there's no disconnect. Whatever we create is all the same thing, and it all feeds the same spirit, and it all feeds the same energy. And I think that's exactly what we got from this workshop today with Mr. Skeef'S.
My impression with Umalumu Eugene Skeef'S was, like with the workshop that we did was really like enlightening in many ways. Not only, in terms of writing, but also, the whole thing of storytelling and where we come from as a people, and how I look at sound now. It's quite different from, how I looked at it prior to the workshop. So that actually changed a lot, changed my life, and also gave me assurance about what's in it, for me as a storyteller, and how my future is going to be. And looking at him do the work, I saw myself, in the future, and how I'll, go about living in this storytelling life.
First of all, when you start writing, you don't really understand what you're doing and what you're doing it for, and so you get into a trap of thinking, okay, cool, once I pick the pen and then I start writing a poem, that's when the poet must come out, right? When I'm in class and I'm doing my academics, that's when the intellectual must come out, and when I'm doing other things, then I'm just a normal person who doesn't know anything about life, hasn't figured anything out, whereas you should draw from all these experiences. Like from your academia, you learn a couple of things, right? And from your poetic endeavor, you learn a couple of things, and from interacting with the world, you learn a couple of things, and all of these things are interrelated. All of these things must contribute to the body of work that you produce. Write a poem about time value of money in which you mention the fact that you're an accountant, right? For example, right? Write a poem about your childhood to say that you're a person who has an experience that, they're drawing from. And so it really helped when he was telling me about, not compartmentalizing your poetry from your life, from your academics, because essentially what poetry is a method of looking at the world that allows you to observe certain things and share that with the world. And so it doesn't make any sense for it to be just one aspect of it.
Hi, my name is Mamolefe. I'm studying strategic communication and I am a writer. And one word that I can say to articulate that workshop was love. I think the first word that came to mind was love, because the moment I stepped into that workshop room, the energy on its own was fulfilling, not only from Eugene, but from the people that were also a part of the workshop, the people that were questioning the workshop, as well as the leaders in the workshop as well. So from that energy, we were able to dance around music, dance around wordplay, dance around arts, as well as listen to Eugene's art. So that's one thing I can truly appreciate about him. He not only was trying to talk to us about poetry, how to write poetry and what poetry is or what it should be, but the fact that poetry is art. And art is not just a talent, it's a lifestyle. It's in the way you listen to music, the way you create music. The way music is more than just music, but a form of love, as I might say again. How anything from a drop of water to the click of your tongue can form into a poem. And from a poem, it can come into a lyric. And from a lyric, it becomes a song.
Peace. My name is Mangala, but I'm formerly known as Strada. This workshop, to be quite honest, was quite insightful, very moving. It reminded me as to why exactly I fell in love with poetry, where I find my home in poetry. So the great sir spoke greatly about nature and how we are connected to nature, and that poetry's first home is in nature. Then it translates into us, or it gets moved into us. So with that, I've then realized our part in this in poetry is to just share what has been given to us. So this workshop has been truly, truly insightful for me, and I hope to carry this energy whenever I perform, whenever I speak to people generally, to just help them realize that they themselves are poets, even if they don't call themselves that, because they are natural human beings within this world.
I was totally taken away by their receptiveness, and especially using the concept of nature and the environment as the reservoir of all poetic ability. They treated me with great respect, as if I was bringing something special. I wasn't, in actual fact. I was coming into a space filled with other people, so we were all special. So whether we're writing about bombs or aeroplanes or war or anything, or shoes, you can find the source of the metaphors in nature. So to come back home to my motherland, to the place where my umbilical cord is buried under a tree, is just like, it feels like I'd never left, because my spirit is here. All the essence of my being was formed here. So even though I've traveled the world, I've been to Bosnia, I've been to India, Canada, you name it, Ghana, Nigeria, nothing has stopped me from remembering that I am from here, because that is the essence of my being.